What's going on, everybody? This is Scott, also known as ChaChingKing. I put out a video about shipping on eBay. Try to break the process down into bite-sized pieces to make it less intimidating and less anxiety-producing when you're just getting started. There were a lot of questions in the comments about how we come up with accurate weight and measurements. Let's break that process down and make that a little bit easier. We're going to look at each of those two things separate, weight and measurements, but they both have something in common. The weight and the measurements need to be in the format that the post office is going to see. For example, let me show you something. This is a swimsuit. I'm not going to take this to the post office in a plastic bag and have them send it to my customer. This is how it sits in my inventory. My weight and my measurement are going to look different. So let's talk first about the weight of this item. If I weigh it just like this, it's going to come in right at 8 ounces. But if I enter this at 8 ounces, that isn't going to be accurate when I go to the post office because I need to put this in something. So remember, whether we're talking weight, which is what we're going to do for this, or the measurement of the package, it needs to be the same exact way that the post office is going to see it. Something like this that's not breakable, it doesn't have any breakable buttons, I would put this into a poly mailer. This is a poly mailer, and it's just a poly mailer. It isn't see-through. It's got a peel-off adhesive strip that I can stick it down and put it in there. So if I'm going to send this swimsuit, it would need to be in the package that I'm going to send it in, like so. And you'll notice it doesn't change the weight a great deal, but it did change it to 8.3 ounces. And that is why this is important to know how it's going to be packaged up. There is a big difference between 8 ounces and 8.3. Always round up with your weights and your measurements. So on this one, it's going to go as 9 ounces. If I'm going to put a packing list in here or a thank you sticker on it, I need to account for that too. Now, and it probably wouldn't push it over 9 ounces, but you always round up. So as far as weight goes, the big thing to remember is that you weigh it packaged up. The other question that came out of that is, do you go ahead and pre-package everything and then store it that way? Well, that becomes untenable very, very quickly. You typically don't have the storage when everything is going in its own box. You're just not going to have room for that if you're selling very much at all. You need to weigh it that way and have your measurements that way, but it needs to go into an inventory system, not pre-packaged. It might work for someone with a ton of space, but it would never work for me. And here's the thing. With these, I bought these in bulk, and I think I had 20 pairs of them. I don't have to weigh every single one of those. I can do one of them and have a really good idea of what they're all going to weigh. With experience, you're not going to have to do this process every single time. At the end of this video, I'm also going to tell you something that should take away the rest of the anxiety, something the post office does that I think makes this much better for us as we're moving forward. Boxes are pretty easy, kind of. So last week, I mentioned in the video that like on this box, it is 8 by 8 by 4. And so that's the measurements that I put in there. And I was called out in the comments very, very quickly that those are the interior measurements of the box. And if you don't measure the outside of the box, you could get it wrong. So you need a tape measure. I do want you to see that this box is 8 by 8 by 4. However, the reason that getting called out on that is absolutely accurate is because when people said that, I wasn't positive. And so from this supplier with this box, it was accurate. In fact, it's never created a problem for me, but it could. Getting the measurements right is really important because of this. With the post office, anything over 22 inches long could have a surcharge. So if I ship something in a 22-inch box, but that was the interior dimension and it's a little bit over that, I could end up with a surcharge from the post office. So for the people that went down into the comments, good for you, because I wasn't positive. The boxes that I use most did come out accurate, but I didn't know that for sure. So always measure. Let me tell you how we measure. We measure the long side, the next longest side, and then the height. On a box like this, where they're the same, not that critical. So this would have been 8 by 8 by 4. I do have a priority box. So when I measure, I would measure here first. And on this box, it comes to now the post office. The post office puts the interior and the exterior measurements on the box. And so for Melody and I, we already know this is going to be 15, 8, and 6. That's how this box is going to come out and measure. And when you measure it, that's how the outside measurements work. Even though this is 14.875, it rounds up. Always, always, always round up when you're doing that. Boxes are pretty easy because most of us can go from the longest to the shortest side and know what to do. Where it becomes less sure is when you're using something like a bubble mailer or you're using a poly mailer. How do you measure that and get it into your listing accurately? So I'm going to tell you how I've done it, and it's always worked. But I also challenge you, if you're doing this a different way, I promise you are not going to hurt my feelings, because I have never claimed to have the best way or the only right way. Like, I don't have any ownership of this at all. If you know a better way, share it in the comments. The worst thing that happened is I'll learn a better way. But here's what we do. When you buy this envelope from eBay, it is 9 inches by 6 inches. So those are going to be my first 2 measurements. And then, depending upon what I put in that, let's say that I'm going to send somebody tape. And I seal this up just like that. I'm still going to use 9 by 6, but now I'm going to go by the thickest measurement on this. Let me get that out of the way. It's interfering. Like that. So if this is, 2 and just a hair over 2 inches, just a little bit over 2 inches. So for me, I'm going to put 9 by 6 by 3. I'm going to round up. So basically, I'm taking the envelope size, whatever you ordered, whether it's 13 by 10 or 9 by 6, and then I'm going by the thickest point when it's packed in there. And keep in mind, and I struggled with this when I first started shipping, they don't all have to be perfectly level across the top. Packages can be lumpy, just like when I stuffed this in there. Just take the tallest measurement, when sitting on the table, the tallest measurement, and round up. When I do that, I have never, ever had a problem with shipping. It has always come out good. Now, let's take a little bit more pressure off. When you do your shipping on eBay and you buy your label on eBay, you're eventually going to make a mistake. I have made mistakes where I got the measurement wrong, or it was longer than it should have been, or I just missed something. The post office, if they scan a package and the weight or the measurements were incorrect, they will go back and charge eBay for that, and eBay charges you. So there will be a cost adjustment. They don't stop the package from going to your customer. So it doesn't interfere with your business. You're just going to pay the difference that you should have paid up front. Here's the best part about that. Because I round up all the time, I get way more cost adjustments with a credit. The post office will also give you your money back if you overpaid. The other thing that I would remind you of, look, if you make a mistake and it costs you some money, it's just a learning experience, because it's going to happen. It happened to me. Most recently, I thought I was using a 12 by 12 by 8 priority box, and it wasn't. It was the large flat rate box, which looks very similar in shape. And I ended up spending an extra like $9 and something. Okay, live and learn. I'm more careful when I'm grabbing that size box now. If you found this video helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But most of all, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching. I'm going to see you real soon on the next one. Bye.